Every day there's something new, and it's always crazy. Hello, my fam. It is Perez, the queen of all media, the original influencer, journalist, podcaster, and your number one source for everything. It ends with us saga. Yesterday, I told you all that the docket duchess was supposed to receive a lot of materials from the Wayfarer parties that were compelled to hand that over by Judge Lyman, and that happened, but Team Kaka is now complaining. We'll get to that in a second, but first, yet another development. Judge Lyman just issued a ruling in favor of Van Zandt Veruca. Because, of course, I've not been covering these two that much. Those two definitely, but Case and Coslow. They are peripheral players that have recently come front and center. They are two women who, one still works for Melissa Nathan at the agency group. She, Melissa Nathan, is one of the Wayfarer defendants and is Justin Baldoni's crisis communications expert. And the other of the two women used to work at the agency group. Both of them were involved in the creation of that website, the lawsuit info, and they were involved in Signal chats, and the judge just issued an order compelling them to hand over information. Brianna Butler Coslow and Catherine Case were claiming privileged communications, attorney-client privilege and work product, and the judge said, no. Even though they were involved in discussions with lawyers, this is just so crazy. I feel like new law is being made with this case. You're not always protected when talking to an attorney. Anyways, long story short, Judge Lyman granted the motion to compel Case and Coslow in part and denied it in part. But, big but, Team Ridicula mostly got everything they wanted. On brand for her lapdog that I don't have to deal with anymore, thankfully. Well, yesterday, I also told you all that in addition to the treasure trove of texts, emails, and communications that the Wayfarer defendants had to hand over, they also requested an extension of 1 week to hand over Signal communications. And while they did hand over what we've now learned, over 80,000 documents, the signal of it all and the volume of it all has really upset the high school graduate and oxygen inhaler. This is a piece of work. This letter was written by Mikey Mike Gottlieb, and it says, Dear Judge Lyman, we write to address the Wayfarer defendant's recent letter motion. The Wayfarer defendant's filing made within hours of a court-ordered deadline and without conferring at all with counsel for Miss Lively did not even attempt to justify their request pursuant to this court's requirements. Further, although the court did not grant the Wayfarer defendant's requested relief, the Wayfarer defendants appear to have granted themselves the extension anyway, failing to produce the court-ordered Signal materials by the deadline of last evening. On top of this, there are a number of other issues. This is why I'm covering this, because in and of itself, that's like, blah, 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 blah. But now, it gets delicious. On top of this, there are a number of other issues that have arisen in the last 24 hours that appear likely to affect the party deposition schedule. Dun, dun, dun. This judge hates his life right now because of this case. It's what you signed up for, buddy. He should have just said conflict of interest, but he could not have imagined that this saga would saga so hard. So now the wife of Scarlett Johansson's ex-husband says that 1, the Wayfarer defendant's proposed production date for Signal Communications, September 15th, is the same date scheduled for Steve Sorowitz's deposition. So, 2, the Wayfarer defendants produced over 80,000 pages of documents last night, which will take days to process and more to review. 3, notwithstanding that voluminous and belated production, the Wayfarer parties produced search terms that appear to be woefully insufficient, raising serious questions about the completeness of their production to date. And 4, key third-party witnesses, Catherine Case and Brianna Koslow, have just been ordered to produce documents by September 12th, and they have already been deposed. Accordingly, Miss Lively respectfully submits the Wayfarer defendant's course of conduct and letter motion, whether due to gamesmanship or a lack of planning, has necessitated adjustments to the forthcoming deposition schedule, which Miss Lively will propose as soon as feasible, following conference with the other parties. Yes, exhausting and exhausted. And they're not done yet. Your Honor, Your Honor. Miss Lively attempted to confer with the Wayfarer defendants today regarding certain deficiencies in connection with their production last night, but their counsel refused to include discussion of these issues in an already scheduled party conference taking place today, invoking this court's 48-hour requirement. Pursuant to the court's case schedule, the Wayfarer defendants were required to substantially complete document production by July 1st, 2025, which they did not do. Given the deficient productions made as of the court-ordered deadline, the parties therefore sought and the court ordered several deadlines for the production of documents and motions to compel, along with a stipulated extension of fact discovery from August 14th to September 30th. The Wayfarer defendants were compelled to make complete productions by September 2nd, which are incomplete, as Miss Lively documented in a meet and confer letter sent to the Wayfarer parties on Friday, September 5th, and September 8th, which are similarly incomplete, as Miss Lively understands that they did not include Signal Communications by Melissa Nathan, Steve Sorowitz, Brian Friedman, and Summer Benson. I'm sure some of you want to know, but Summer Benson is a lawyer. Now you know. Today's letter continues. To the extent this court intends to rule on the Wayfarer defendant's request for a 1-week extension, seems reasonable, there is no justification for the requested extension. The Wayfarer defendants failed to reasonably explain why, even with the 12 to 24-hour timeline for collection that they reference, this court's order did not provide sufficient time to produce the compelled materials by the deadline. Pause. They did explain. They said, I'm reading it in their request for a 1-week extension, quote, due to travel and business schedules, as well as unanticipated technological difficulties encountered by the third-party vendor in collecting and processing. That's the explanation. You may not like it, but they did give one, all right? You could argue it wasn't meaty enough. There was not enough there, but they gave an explanation. Whatever. Oh, Jesus. But I love this. I'm complaining because it's exhausting, but I also secretly can't get enough of it. Back to the latest filing. Further, the Wayfarer defendant's motion confirms that they did not, in fact, collect the relevant communications from the Signal messaging platform as part of the initial collection efforts that the parties were expected to undertake in the spring, or apparently at any later point, even though they identified Signal as one of their methods of communication about relevant matters in their interrogatory responses. The Wayfarer defendant's carelessness in waiting until the court ordered a production to conduct collection of communications, and for which it is standard to collect remotely, that Miss Lively has requested for over 6 months, bold and italicized, falls woefully short of demonstrating any basis for such an extension. Further, by virtue of their continued deficient productions well after the substantial completion deadline, the Wayfarer defendants have upended the painstakingly negotiated deposition calendar, pursuant to which scheduled depositions are to be completed by September 30th, 2025, including for parties whose productions are conceitedly incomplete. Last evening, the Wayfarer defendants produced documents totaling more than, the number's higher now, more than 83,600 pages. As noted above, and by way of example, the Wayfarer defendants now propose to produce Mr. Sorowitz's Signal communications on the day of his deposition, which is especially problematic given the paucity of documents produced by Mr. Sorowitz to date. Paucity. If you didn't know, that means the presence of something only in small or insufficient quantities or amounts. Scarcity, but paucity. That's what they get paid. The big bucks. That's what they get paid. That's what they get paid the big bucks for. This case is anything but cautious. Wait, does it work that way? Paucitous? Whatever. Given that delay on Mr. Sorowitz's part, along with additional delays in substantial productions that are necessary prerequisites to party depositions, Miss Lively intends to meet and confer promptly with the Wayfarer defendants and thereafter seek appropriate relief to allow party depositions to occur on a timeline that will facilitate the processing and review of the Wayfarer defendants' untimely produced documents for use in those depositions. Respectfully submitted, Michael J. Gottlieb. Of note are these interesting footnotes. Number 1, of these documents produced, 43,140 pages were produced last night by Miss Nathan and Tag, which substantially implicates the depositions of third parties Case and Coslow, and which productions will be accessible and reviewable only after their depositions on September 5th and September 9th, respectively. Additionally, the court has ordered the production of additional documents by Case and Coslow by September 12th. And footnote number 2. Prior to the Wayfarer defendant's productions last night, Mr. Sarowitz had produced a mere 227 documents. He has now made an additional production of documents that must be processed before they are reviewed. Days of Our Lives and General Hospital has nothing on this. I really think, I hope not, but I also hope so. I think there's a strong possibility that the trial date start might get pushed back from March of 2026 to some other time in 2026 or even 2027. And I thank you for keeping me fed. All right, my fam. Thoughts on all this ridiculousness? Let's discuss everything in the comments section.